Interesting time to be talking about capital formation. Let's take a look at what that means on the college campus. This panel will be moderated by Jenny Casson, and we have Stephanie Geller and Dr. Jason Cherubini. Hope I got that right.
Hey everyone, it's a super short panel. We'd love for you to hear it. This is going to be a big contrast from the previous panel. As you know, investment crowdfunding is a big tent. We want to be able to be a home for all kinds of businesses. And so what we really want to focus on for this panel is the smaller businesses that probably will never go public, may never do a Reg A, but they need to raise 100,000, 200,000 to grow and be healthy. And a lot of these businesses, even though, there's been a lot of talk about exits, you really don't always need an exit for investors to make money. As was referred to in the previous panel, many of the folks who are offering investment opportunities under regulation crowdfunding are offering revenue-based payments, debt. So this is a great fit for a huge number of businesses in our country, and they can actually pay really good returns. We actually have one issuer right now who's paying like a 14% interest rate on her offering. So I also want to mention, hey guys, can we keep it quiet? Thank you so much. We also want to mention that the three of us all are living in Baltimore, so we're representing Baltimore right now. Does anyone here have ties to Baltimore? Woohoo! Great city. All right, so I want to start with Stephanie Geller, who is an amazing leader in the world of investment crowdfunding and making it accessible for so many people. I would love to ask you, Stephanie, I don't want to be too negative, but I want to start out by asking you, what do you see that are the challenges for these super small businesses that need to raise money using investment crowdfunding or would like to?
Thanks, Jenny. So I'm going to begin just by sharing a little bit about why investment crowdfunding could be so important for these small businesses in Baltimore, because these are businesses that can't access Main Street capital. So this is really the only way, particularly in Baltimore, for small, local, and Black-owned businesses to get the capital they need to start, or for existing businesses to get the capital they need to grow. But on top of that, right, like this model could make so much more sense for them than a traditional loan, even if they could get that, because they could set the terms. And also, this enables them to really create bonds with their customers and community. And when we think about what could make Baltimore a more sustainable, stronger, more vibrant city, it's really connecting the residents with these businesses. And investment crowdfunding could be such an ideal tool. The real challenge are the existing platforms. And even though many say they are there for mom and pop businesses and Main Street businesses, they are not set up in a way to ensure small businesses can succeed. They have fees, processing fees, or onboarding fees, or different types of fees that set up an immediate barrier. And they also, like, one possible beauty of investment crowdfunding could be that businesses could set their own terms. But again, a lot of the platforms that are geared to these types of businesses, like Honeycomb, for example, will actually act like a mainstream traditional provider and say, you can be on our platform if you offer 13% interest, 15% interest. And Jenny, the business that you mentioned that is now raising on Honeycomb, who's offering 14.5% interest, that's not her top choice. That's not necessarily going to set her up for success. But for her to be on the Honeycomb platform, she has no ability to do that. Another small thing that really bothers me too about these platforms that makes it hard for small businesses is that they sometimes charge investors fees. So Honeycomb also charges investors fees. And for these small businesses that are trying to excite possibly lower moderate income people to invest in them, these fees also make it more challenging. So I feel like there's so much possibility in investment crowdfunding and so much room in the market for small local businesses to get capital, partially because there are no other choices, but also because it's really could be so valuable for them. But the way most platforms are set up, it just makes it really, really hard.
Yes, and as someone who helped to co-found a crowdfunding portal, I really empathize with why it is that so many portals can't really do a lot for these smaller raises. It's very hard to have a successful business model for these smaller raises. So that is where a university could potentially come in. So Jason, tell us about Loyola and what it does with entrepreneurs and your students and how they want to get involved in entrepreneurship and why Loyola could be a good home for a crowdfunding platform.
Yeah, so Jason Cherubini, executive in residence of finance at Loyola University, Maryland, Selinger School of Business. We also have the Simon Center for Entrepreneurship there that works with local entrepreneurs, small businesses, trying to give them more of the business tools that they otherwise wouldn't have access to or they would be priced out of. One of the things we see with a lot of these small businesses through our student consulting groups, our entrepreneurs, event is that the community rallies behind them. A lot of people want to support the local businesses. They'll show up when they have events, they'll spend their money there. They would love, in a lot of situations, to have a piece of that as well. They just don't have a means to do that. That's where crowdfunding comes in. And as you said, Jenny, some of the idea of the platforms, they are a business. They are to make money. They need the fees in order to operate to make it lucrative for their own options. But that then prices out a lot of these small businesses who are looking for raises that are nowhere near enough to make it juicy for the platforms. If you're looking at a small restaurant, a small dry cleaner, something in the community that needs $100,000, $150,000, the fees for the platform are not going to make it worthwhile. I mean, you're going to spend as much in fees setting up your financials, putting things on the platform, your platform fees, as you would raise. So the transaction, the friction costs alone push them out. But if we were to remove the profit incentive of the platform, really have it a community or nonprofit incentive, the mechanics would be there for a community to rally behind those businesses they always frequent. Most of my research into investor motivation and crowdfunding showed that your non-professional financial investors, your non-accredited investors, the financial motivation of investment is not their number one motivation. They want to feel connected. They want to be involved. They want to support the people they know. So those are the people who will show up to the local restaurant they go to all the time. They'll invest in the local hall where their friend got proposed to. They want to put the money behind it because it's part of their community. Now, that doesn't mean that the financial motivation isn't there. These people aren't throwing money down the drain, but that's not going to be their primary motivation. So that connectivity, that major force behind why so many people choose to invest in one crowdfunding project over another, really should be a major benefit for these small businesses. They just don't have the mechanism to do it because of the transaction costs, because of the friction, which is a necessary part of these platforms needing to be profitable.
Absolutely. So, Stephanie, as someone who has been working on growing the community, and someone talked about rebranding crowdfunding, and I like to use the term community investing. So, as someone who has been working to grow the community investing ecosystem in Baltimore for quite some time, what would you say are some successes and also what is still missing and how might Loyola University of Maryland, if it is able to launch a local platform or even a nationwide platform with a presence in Baltimore, like what could that look like or what should that look like?
To me, Loyola could be an ideal partner because one thing that we've been working on the ground to do that Loyola could really amplify is the education. And I think we heard a lot this morning. The lack of education is a barrier across the board. I mean, in Baltimore, one big hurdle is just business owners don't know they can get capital from customers and community. And introducing them to this model is really like the ground level, the entry point. And then On the other side, right? Like so many people in Baltimore love the city and they know, I should go to a local farmer's market and I should shop local. They don't know that they can invest in local businesses. So that's something that we've been working on for the past many years to solve. We have a platform called the Maryland Neighborhood Exchange, and we do education to businesses, education to residents, and then we have this website where when people get excited for local investment, they can find the businesses that they can invest in. But it is such a small scale. We are a scrappy nonprofit. So it would be really exciting for an entity like Loyola to get involved because they really can amplify all of this. And also just the students, right? Like the next generation of leaders, and to have this really tie to an entity that is teaching and educating, I think will help expand knowledge of this field, right? Like, so people that are learning can take this into their next phase. And then on the other side too, like when we work with businesses, they do need a lot of help. A lot of businesses need help looking at expected revenue so they can figure out what type of deal could make sense. They need help on the communication side. So there's really a huge way to involve students that have a lot of diverse interests in this too.
Jason, I know even though you are Baltimore based, you probably would like to see something like this happen all over the country. Do you see, if we could build this in Baltimore with Loyola University, do you see a way that this could potentially scale to communities across the country?
Well, I think with proven success and then best practices, when something works, everyone's going to copy it. And I think for where that benefit is, there's benefits to the local businesses, the community, which is phenomenal. It opens up capital for them to grow where they don't have access to institutional or Wall Street. It's going to benefit the students, one with the experience on that side. But I think it also benefits the entire crowdfunding system because you'll be training people to understand this as its own asset class, as its own investment. So as we're pushing students out, they won't have just been exposed to the CFA curriculum or the CPA curriculum, but this will be seen in the same way. Move it from a fringe type investment. It's not a weird crypto thing or it's not a scam. It's a viable alternative in small scale investment. So for a lot of these students who may have dreams of, I want to go investment banking and then into private equity, this is a whole nother asset class as they go out there that they'll be trained, they'll be known, and that could open up funds in a whole other way. And I think if it works in one area, one school like a Loyola, there's 26 other Jesuit schools with their major mission of community development that would see this not as a financial reason or an educational thing, although that would be a component. It really would be a community development thing because most Jesuit schools and a lot of universities in general really see themselves as a hub of a community in the locations they exist at. So Loyola in Baltimore, American University here in DC, my alma mater, Tulane in New Orleans. These are all institutions that believe in growing their community because the stronger community makes for a stronger institution.
So when I ended up we're creating a project in Baltimore, buying a building in Baltimore that will be a home to support this movement. And somewhat coincidentally, I found out that Baltimore, as far as I know, is the only city where there is a nonprofit called Community Wealth Builders run by Stephanie Geller that has been working so hard to grow the local ecosystem and to educate local residents about the fact that they can invest locally, how to do it, maybe how to make it fun. So, Stephanie, can you share how you have grown that? Like, as far as I think you have at least 4,000 people in Baltimore, if not more, who have committed to investing locally and to learning how to do that. So, share more about what you've built so far.
I'll say so. We've had successes with 92 businesses that have been on our platform. They have together gotten about 6.6 million from I think 13,000 small investors. So it numerically sounds somewhat large, but it's such a tiny fraction, right, of the businesses in Baltimore, and such a tiny fraction of the number of people there. Most of the businesses we're working with are looking to get 50,000, 100,000. They're really small businesses. And I feel like we've really scratched the surface. I feel like when we began this, it was a little easier. Mainvest existed, and their platform was clearly not a model that for-profit should emulate because they folded, but they, had no fees for investors, no fees for businesses to get on, and it was a lot easier. I feel like it's harder now. In the beginning, each year, we worked with dozens of businesses, and now the businesses that actually can have success on the platforms are a lot smaller. For me, it's really a community development tool, though. I think we often talk about crowdfunding like in relationship to specific businesses. And one thing we're trying to do in Baltimore is to create a community of practice around this as a way to create a more equitable, inclusive, sustainable city, right? You give community members a small stake in businesses' success. They're going to shop there more. They're going to promote it more. And when we talk about, just what could help a city improve on its own, right? Without relying on the government, like really through the love of the people there. This model holds so much promise. I just feel like the platform piece is something that is driving me crazy.
Yeah, so regulation crowdfunding, I have to admit, when the law first passed, as it was going through the process, I advocated to not require capital raisers to have to go through a portal. I loved the idea of everyone being able to just go out directly to their community without having to go through a portal. I think there are pros and cons about requiring a portal, but it is unfortunate that we are seeing a lot of consolidation in the industry. A lot of the smaller portals that were a little friendlier to small businesses have folded or been acquired. So we really need to find ways to serve everybody. And there is so much room for philanthropy, local government that wants to support community development to get involved to allow this to happen without putting these portals in a difficult situation where they need to make enough money to survive. We are very much looking for supporters to help us launch this pilot that could hopefully be replicated throughout the country. So Jason, like what would it take for Loyola to actually be able to launch this, and how can folks in the room help?
Well, that's really the structuring of the platform and all the regulation side of it to be able to push it forward. And I think the benefit, wherever it happens, is it's an entry point for a lot of people for this as a new investment class, because it's a lot easier for me to convince someone to invest in something they already believe in. I don't know if anyone visits Baltimore at all, but to convince someone to invest in D. Pascal's would take nothing. It's the single best Italian sub in the world. If you have an hour, go up there and get it. It's worth it, but it wouldn't take much. And for someone to put up $100 or $200 to invest in somewhere they go for lunch anyways, that's an easy conviction for them to get their toe in. For them to commit $1,000, $10,000 of their true investment into a business halfway across the country, to read through the financials, to develop that level of trust, that's a much heavier carry. So I think that starting point is going to be the big benefit to the industry as a whole. And I think a partnership with an existing platform would be the benefit there, because again, it's trust. And trusting with the institution name is beneficial. Trusting with a known platform is beneficial for all of the fiduciary responsibility that would need to be there.
Right. So Loyola could go ahead and start a whole new platform, but that is so challenging. Or maybe there is an existing platform, a broker dealer, a portal that would like to white label host this platform and get a lot of amazing recognition in exchange for doing that. So if you have any interest in participating in any way, whether through philanthropy, through a partnership, we would absolutely love to talk to you. Any last words, Stephanie, about this, what could happen here and how meaningful it would be?
I mean, I would love to hear everyone's ideas too. I feel like this is such a huge gap. And, these businesses are the blood of our country. And no matter what community you live in, ensuring local small businesses really have access to capital so they can grow, so they can survive, to me makes a lot of sense. And then, but on the community side too, right? If you live somewhere, don't you want to be the person who can invest in your local pizza restaurant's growth or, the businesses in your community's growth? So everyone sort of can rise together. So, like, the logic model to me is there. We just need the infrastructure to make it happen. And I feel like the people in this room can't help us figure out how to do it. We're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I would just add to it. I think it's a benefit both ways. One, it's going to benefit the industry by bringing more people into crowdfunding and seeing it as a valid investment source with that very little hurdle of trust. On the flip side, it's going to benefit the businesses. It's going to open up capital that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. Again, raising from Main Street is going to be the only option for a lot of these businesses where they're not going to be able to get into Wall Street. And no matter how much money you have or where you want to invest, you're utilizing small businesses. They are still taking a portion of your spending. There's money to be made there for investors.
Thank you so much. We have some handouts with a little bit more information. If anyone wants to get involved or maybe try to make this happen in your own community, we would love to talk to you.